Okay, so I just finished recording this podcast episode with Madeline Evergreen. And for those of you that are loving human design, that are curious about human design, or you've never heard about human design, this episode is a must listen to because the way that she explains how we can use human design as a tool, and only if it like resonates with us, right? There's nothing you ever should be using or have to use, right? It's just like about keeping an open mind to this tool, seeing if it resonates. And if it does, this could be a life changer. Like Madeline dives into her story about how human design actually helped her get clarity on how to resolve 33 years of some health, of like really a lot of health issues she was going through. She tried so many things, and finally, human design helped her release that. And she's been so much more healthy and aligned since. And also, it's a tool that she uses to be really successful in her business in like a fluid, like free flowing, aligned way. We dive into all of that. We dive into the science around like human design of what they're starting to discover about how it's actually has it's scientific of how there are these particles called neutrinos that end up showing up in our bodies at a certain time. Anyway, I'll let her explain it because I cannot explain it. I'm not the expert here. But Madeline also goes into the five different human design types, which will be really cool for you to lean into and listen to and see, ooh, which one am I? And also she gives you insight onto where to find your chart. And we just dive into so many stories of how human design has been helpful and beneficial for us in our lives, in our business. So I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. And now I'm just going to read to you her intro so that you get to know her a little bit right off the bat. So, Madeline Evergreen is a human design reader and a somatic breathwork practitioner. She started her career at the young age of 14, teaching group fitness and Pilates, and eventually moved into nutrition coaching. Madeline has a unique perspective on life after experiencing severe health problems. Oh, sorry. I had to like move my what's it called? Scrolling thing because my words were cut off here. Okay, so Madeline has a unique perspective on life after experiencing severe health problems since birth. And after struggling to find help with her health from any doctors or practitioners, she educated herself and took her healing into her own hands as a teenager. Changing her diet and addressing trauma and stress through breath work, Madeline finally started to get healthy. And it wasn't until she learned human design that her health improved exponentially. By living her design and getting her mindset and life into alignment, she has stopped experiencing 95% of her health problems. And she is significantly happier, has tons of energy, and is much more successful in her work and relationships. You can learn more from Madeline on her popular podcast, The Beginner's Guide to Human Design. But for now, tune into this episode and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Madeline. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Oh my gosh, it's going to be, oh, we're going to dive into so much today. I can't wait to just like ask you all the questions that I know the listeners are curious about and also what I'm curious about. So, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, and I love how, so for anybody who doesn't know, I met Madeline at a recent like business event called BBD Live, and we just like instantly connected and we like sat by the pool just like talking away, and it was just like so nice and relaxing to be able to like meet someone. You know, when you meet someone and you just feel so comfortable to be yourself right away with them, like that's what I feel like me and Madeline have, and it's super great. And then when I found out about the work that she does, it's like, this is amazing because I'm like totally into diving in deeper into understanding human design. And I also have been recently using it as a tool to keep me aligned in my decisions. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this stuff helps so much. So for those of you that either are interested in human design, know a little bit, or have never heard about it, I think this episode will be great for you. If you've never heard of it before, keep your mind open. We'll dive into like some points about it that could help you realize, oh, this is actually like part of our world. Like there's actually scientific proof now around it. And then at the end of the episode, then you can decide this is for me, this is not. Because I truly believe that there are so many incredible tools in the world and they're not meant for everybody. So if it resonates with you, amazing. Keep your mind open to see if there is that resonance. If there isn't, that's okay too. And that's it. But okay, to start off the episode, I'm actually really excited to ask you, Madeline, about because I know that you've been through like a health journey in your life and it started off really young. And you've mentioned that human design has really helped you like heal so much for yourself in your life. And as soon as I'm like, okay, we're getting on this call, like I love to intuitively ask questions of my guests because I literally tap into my community and I'm like, what do they need to hear? What do they need to understand? And it went straight to health first. It's like something told me cover health first because I don't know if you know, but since September of last year, since our toddler started school, I have been sick 9 or 10 times in the last like however
Yeah.
many months. Like it was like a 7 month span, every week, every 2 weeks. And as soon as I was like, okay, now I can get back to my like movement routine, doing yoga. Oh no, sick again. It like was so hard on me because I actually have never been sick that often ever in my life because I would only get sick once a year with a cold, once every 2 years. I once had the flu when I was young. And so I am now at this point where I'm valuing health so much more deeply because I took it for granted before. And I'm realizing, oh shit, there are people out there that are going through what I went through, but also other stuff. Like there's so much complexity in like what can manifest in our bodies and our health. And like if I can provide anyone with just a different perspective on a tool they can use, and maybe it's the answer for them to like actually manifest more health in their lives, I'm like, let's have those conversations because that was so hard for me. Now that I'm on the other side, I'm just like, I need to really nurture my health to make sure, that doesn't happen again. So, I would love for you to just like share a bit of your story, whatever comes up for you on how human design has been able to help you, feel more healthy and be more healthy in your life.
Definitely. From pretty much day one of my life, I suffered with tons of health problems. And my very first sentence that I ever said as, I don't know what age, but a little baby was, my knees hurt. That's the first thing I ever said. And I had intense, horrifying stomach pains. I had growth hormone deficiency. I had vomiting and fainting spontaneously my whole childhood. I had rashes and skin problems and extreme mood issues, anxiety, hair falling out, like you name it, I had it. And nobody could ever tell me what was really wrong. Nobody could ever really help me with any of that. And by the time I was a teenager, it was so bad that my school was calling 911 on me all the time because I was fainting spontaneously. It was just a mess. And so by the time I was about 16 or 17, I got really into nutrition because I had heard that there's this thing called gluten. And that was way before anybody was really gluten-free. This was like 2007-ish when I started looking into this. Nobody else I knew was interested in nutrition pretty much. And I went down the rabbit hole of physical health. I changed my entire diet. I was already exercising a lot because I was a dancer and I was planning to become a professional dancer. So I was very, very active and fit. And I was teaching fitness classes at that age as well. But I went like heavy duty into nutrition and developed an entire nutrition career. And that's what I did for about a decade from then on. And I barely got any health benefits. Like it didn't really help. It kind of did. I stopped fainting. I, sort of got better, like 5%, but I still had to call in sick at work many times a week, like not just a couple times a year or month, but it was like, am I or am I not going to show up? That's the question every single day. And oftentimes while I'm working, I was so sick, I could hardly even be there. um, I just suffered so badly, and I did all of the physical things correctly. I ate the most pristine, perfect diet for well over a decade. I did all of the detoxes. I took hundreds of supplements. I made an entire career out of it because I learned so much just simply for myself. And I really didn't get that much benefit. I was also implementing some spirituality principles. I was doing breath work. I learned that from a very young age. I, was doing affirmations, and I was trying to manifest, and I was trying to think positive, and none of it was really doing much for me. It would give me like 1% benefit, and then it would kind of go away.
Mm.
And then I learned about human design. And I had no intentions of even learning human design. I was actually in a manifestation learning program, and they happened to mention that you can actually just learn how to manifest your way if you learn about your human design chart. And I was like, oh my God, like, why isn't anybody talking about this?
Mhm.
Like, why don't we just do that? So I quickly got obsessed with human design, and I went down the rabbit hole, and it was like a full-time job for me, but it was just a hobby. Like, I
Yeah.
just couldn't stop learning. And I am not kidding. Within about a month, all of a sudden, I had a new body. Like 95% of my health problems just went away. I shrunk way down. I was never severely overweight or anything like that, but I was significantly puffier and more swollen and bloated and just bigger.
Mm.
And that went away to the point where I actually had to buy all new clothing because nothing fit. And I truly didn't change my lifestyle or anything.
Wow.
Well, I changed my lifestyle, meaning like my mindset and the way I
Yeah.
look at things, but I didn't change how I was eating, how I was exercising, my supplements, like nothing. I didn't
Wow.
even think that human design had anything to do with that.
That blows my mind. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is like 33 years of like, I truly felt like I was in a prison in my body of problems. Like, I couldn't get away from my health problems every second of my entire life. It was horrifying for me living like that. And then to have that just like fizzle out effortlessly, to me, is the most incredible thing I've ever experienced, ever. And so I continue just learning human design for myself, and slowly shifting my life to get more alignment in what actually works for me. And I continued to feel better, and I continued to watch the rest of my life beyond my body transform. My entire career transformed, my finances, just the way that I live finally feels effortless and successful. And I'm not doing anything all that different from the outside perspective, but
Mhm.
my mindset and the choices I make are wildly different. So a human design chart is like a user manual for you as an individual. I really wish, honestly, that somebody would walk in when a baby is born, give the parents the baby's human design chart, and say, here's the baby's user manual. Like,
Yeah.
there's the blueprint of their life, because it literally is that. And when you learn how to read it and interpret it and work with it for yourself, you just know things like, what does your intuition actually sound like for you? Not for everyone, but for you. How do you make a decision yourself? Not everybody, but you. How do you eat? What should you be motivated by? What are signs or emotions for you as an individual that show you're out of alignment and you need to make a change? Like, it's very easy once you learn it. It's
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 so
just the cool
true.
thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so many stories on examples of how my body was trying to communicate with me, how my soul was trying to communicate with me. And then when I read my human design chart, like it's like, oh, well, I sorry, I can't read charts, but if when I got the summary of it, it's like, oh, that is so true about me. So true. And actually, so what is the I love that you mentioned the like babies. It's like, here's the manual of like your little human, like to make sure they're like their soul is taken care of in an aligned way. Like, what is that called? Is it your authority if you're an emotional or a non-emotional? Is it authority?
Yeah, your authority is like your decision maker.
Okay, yes. So I noticed because I checked. So Ben and I are both emotional, and
Mhm.
Rory is non-emotional. And so Ben and I could be, right. I know that a emotional person could be, just living out their day and out of nowhere, for no logical reason, they're feeling down or sad or
Mhm.
they need to cry it out. And it's like there's nothing that actually occurred right in front of them that caused that. It's just something, it comes out of somewhere. And now knowing that, I recognize that in Ben. And if he's like crying out of nowhere, feeling upset, and I'm like, but there's literally nothing that just happened to make him cry. I know he just needs to release it, and we give him a
Mhm.
space for that, and that's it. And it's like knowing that it helps me be such a better and more understanding mother. And it's like that's just incredible. Like I just wanted to point that out as like that's an example of like how you can use the tool to understand your little ones better, for example, or the loved ones in your life. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that. And okay, before we get too ahead of ourselves with all that exciting stuff, like maybe even just okay, so you just described, human design is like a manual for like how you were meant to show up in this world, how you're meant to live. And so now for people that are like, but wait, like how the heck does this come about? How can each person have their own manual? And it's decided upon your birth time, birth location, right?
And yep, and birth
And
date.
in birth date, exactly. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about the like what science has discovered about this now, because how the heck does all of that impact then and create this manual? It's like, and tell me about all the neutrinos. Tell the
Yes.
listeners about the neutrinos.
Yes. So, first of all, human design is kind of a combination of a number of different modalities. So, it involves a variety of things like astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra systems, those types of things. Nobody that learns about human design has to become a master or even educated in all of that stuff. It's just that the chart itself is generated considering all those different modalities and kind of blends them all together. And
Mhm.
one aspect of that is what you mentioned, the concept of neutrinos. Neutrinos are really tiny particles. So if you can imagine light particles are very big compared to neutrinos. And a light particle is so large that it can't go through a wall or an
Mhm.
object or through your body. So if you turn on
Right.
the lights, the reason that like it doesn't shine in the other room through the wall is because the particle is so big it bounces off the wall or bounces off your body and then it makes shadows behind you. So you can just get an understanding of what is a particle. That's how we can wrap our minds around particles and then imagine how teeny tiny a neutrino is. It's way smaller than that, so small that it can go through something physical like a wall or a body.
Mhm.
So your human design chart kind of has two parts. It has the part that was made or set in stone about 3 months before you're born.
Mhm.
And it has the part that is set in stone or made the moment that you're born. So that's why your
Okay.
birth time is very critical for your chart. And neutrinos are these little tiny particles that are passing through everything all the time. They are all over the place. There's billions of them. I don't remember the exact number, but it's like there's multiple billions within the size of your thumb or something like that. There's
Wow.
so many.
Yeah.
Neutrinos are carrying the information of the planets or the stars, everything that's going on in astrology at that moment.
Mhm.
So they actually embed things with information. So the moment that you're born and you come into this world, neutrinos are passing through you and you're embedded with the information of the moment of the planets and the sun.
Mhm.
And so that's a big part of where the astrology piece of human design comes in. And so just think that your body is sort of like stamped or imprinted twice, 3 months ish before you're born and the moment you're born. That information of the time of the moment with the planets, the universe, the stars is going to be really set in stone within you and create a lot of how you operate. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yes, yes, very well explained. I love the how you like really painted the picture of the particles and like the size difference of like, oh yeah, true. Like light doesn't go through walls. It's so true. And
Mhm.
like, and for those of you that, I mean, it's such a big concept sometimes for our minds to wrap around. How can all the planets and the stars have an impact on our energy? But if you really think about it, everything is made up of energy. Everything
Mhm.
is matter. Nothing in nature exists alone. And so I like to really humble myself and be like, I really know nothing. Like, we really know nothing about this universe. So that's why I'm so open minded and I question everything. But what I like to ask myself is like, okay, does this resonate with me? Does it feel useful? And if it feels useful, then I'll be like, you know what? It's true for me. Who cares if it's
Mhm.
true, the truth of the world, of the universe? It's like, if it feels good to me and it's actually giving me positive benefits in my life, it's true for me. And like, for those of you that are a little bit skeptical, like how can the planets have an effect on our energy here? Just think about the moon in different phases and think of the water tides and how literally people are like, when the moon is out, the tides come out. It's
Yeah,
just it really it affects it. So if that
totally.
affects that, imagine all the other things, the gravitational pulls, how they're always things are switching, moving around. It definitely always has an effect on us in some sort of way. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
and
explaining that.
I love how you said, if it resonates with you, it's for you. And I'm so on board with that concept. If human design, if it's kind of making you feel excited or interested and you want to know more, then it's for you. If you're feeling like, not for me, great, then you find something that is for you. But I do want to just say that I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about human design, and anybody I've ever talked to that actually learns a tiny bit about their chart always feels validated and says, "Oh my God, that's so me." I have never, ever met a person who learns about their chart and doesn't agree with it. It's never
That's
happened.
great.
For me, I'm sure it's happened to somebody, but I just haven't come across one person
Yeah.
who doesn't feel that way. So
Yeah.
it's worth looking into, I think.
That's incredible. Like something as an example that I can give you all of something that I've noticed that was so aligned in my chart. And that was just like so eye opening on how to run my business for me. It's like I'm noticing, so I'm a generator, and in there, I'm meant to my strategy is to respond. That for me to respond to someone, whether it's a question, whether someone's asking for help, that is what gives me all of the inner motivation fire to show up and share and serve and do what I do. And I've noticed this pattern in me. If I am not connected to the community as much and not receiving questions or hey, that podcast episode really helped me. If I'm not receiving that, I have nothing to respond to. And I lack in energy and motivation and inspiration. And so from there, when I had that clarity, I'm like, okay, I have to create an environment, a greenhouse, so to speak, of like in my business, what is the environment that I need? What do I need? How do I create like people asking me questions? And that's why, for example, I do a free weekly live Q&A to my community where they ask me questions. I get to respond and I take that energy and then I use it to create another podcast episode. I use it to create other things and I use it to also stay connected and understand what people need help with. And that was a game changer for me when I realized I just need something to respond to. And then my
Mhm.
energy is endless. It's mind boggling. So as
Can
an
I tell you a
example,
crazy story about
yeah,
responding? So
yes,
I don't think you know this, Sarah, but we became friends because I was practicing following my strategy of responding. Literally,
yes,
this is how we met.
yeah.
So, just to kind of give a little bit of context for anybody who's like, "What strategy are you responding? What is that?" Each of the types of different people in human design. So there's 5 different types. We could even go into those later if we want, but each of those 5 types, you might be one of them,
Mhm.
is or has a strategy. So a strategy is like, how do you make things happen? Like, how do you get from one step to the other in life? And all 5 of those energy types have a different strategy. So you're a generator, you have the strategy of responding. I'm a different type. I'm a manifesting generator, but that means I also have the strategy of responding because I've got a generator kind of within me. So we both have this strategy of responding. And what that means is that we're supposed to see life as this buffet of options all the time. Like we're always looking around and seeing what are all of the millions of choices in front of me right now. I'm going to only pick the one that feels like a full bodied hell yes. I'm not going to pick the one I should be doing or the one I'm going to force it to happen. Those things can go really well for other energy types, not for people with the strategy of responding. And so you just see like what's laid out in front of me. Like for you, a Q&A, literally you have a group of questions in front of you that you can respond. Am I going to answer these or not? And also, how do I want to answer it? So when we met, we were at that conference, BBD Live. And you would think that like going to a conference, somebody's goal of the conference would be to learn as much as they can or make lots of business connections, something like that. For me, I decided that I was going to make that entire trip just only about me practicing my strategy of responding. Mm-hmm. Like I just decided I'm here doing this conference, but what I'm actually doing is practicing my strategy of responding. And 100% of that entire trip, from the moment I got to the airport to the moment I arrived back home, all I did moment by moment was look at what's in front of me and respond. So when I would walk into this like room full of 1,000 chairs, I wouldn't think like, oh, I got to sit up front because that's what the smart people do, or that's how I always kind of think about things like, what does the successful person do? And instead I would just walk in the room and then I would just sort of glaze my eyes over and be like, well, where is it a hell yes? Who am I seeing that's a hell yes to sit by? And I swear I have never made more friends. I have never made more connections. I've never felt more relaxed and energized. Usually I'm severely exhausted and burnt out at events like that. It was like, I felt like people were flocking to me to just start this connection because of the energy that I was bringing from following my strategy. And so what happened when you and I met was that I went to like the cocktail evening or whatever. And normally I would never go to that. Like I would not go. I hate stuff like that. And so I didn't put any pressure on myself to go. But when it was time to go, I thought, okay, I have a choice. I could go or I could not. Which one is a hell yes? To me, for some odd reason, it feels like a hell yes to go, even though logically it doesn't, because I should just go to bed. And so I went and I was like, this is weird. I'd never do this. And then I walked in and I had no plan. Like, I didn't know, like, am I going to eat? Am I going to drink? Am I going to sit down? Am I going to talk? I have no idea. I walked in and I just stood there and I looked at all the people and I'm like, okay, these are my choices. And then I saw you and I was like, well, that's a hell yes. So I just walked up to you. I didn't know why. I just walked up to you and I was like, hi, I'm Madeline. And we just started talking. And I think I remembered you were on stage and I said like, oh, I liked what you said on stage. And we talked for like hours. And now we have this connection. And it's like, that would not have happened if I had been doing what I think I should be doing.
Yes. Okay. I'm so happy you shared that story because, there's a whole nother layer to this that you just uncovered that like blows my mind because firstly, for the first time ever, I did not drink. I had like one drink at the very, very end of the whole conference when we were up till like 3 a.m., like at the very end. And this was night one, maybe when we met out of the 3 days.
Or the beginning.
I was just not drinking because I wanted to be as clear as possible. I wanted to just be present. Alcohol did not speak to me. And I'm like, I'm just not going to drink. And what's interesting is because you're like, I normally don't go to those events and most people would be having a drink and maybe you don't like, you're like, it's not for me. I don't want to have a drink or I don't know. And then, so we somehow connected with each other and like somehow you didn't know, but like I wasn't drinking. I really wasn't so intended on I need to meet specific people and do this. And like I was also just like, which I can get to following like what my intention was. But yeah, we ended up just like vibing so easily and calmly and just sitting by the pool probably a glass of water or something. Oh yeah, I was eating cheese. I remember that. I was eating
I had
cheese from a
grapes.
little plate. Yeah, but we just sat there talking, and it was like talking to you was like even the therapy that I needed at the time, and we had just met. It was crazy. But I remember, so I love that you said that your intention was to practice responding, right? My
Mhm.
intention going into the conference was, again, the same thing that you said. Oh, you could just be like strategic. Okay, who are the people I want to meet and like do that. I was more on practicing trusting synchronicities. And so
Mhm.
I actually technically, I guess I was responding without knowing it, but I was also like, where should I sit in the room? Like where does it lead me to? And then same thing, I was so relaxed, I felt like I was floating around. I met so many people that when I met you, and I'm like, I just got into human design and now I'm meeting someone that knows so much about human design. It's crazy, the synchronicity around that. It's like, yeah, when I feel like there's this beautiful dance that happens in the universe, when it's like when we live the way we're authentically meant to live in a flowing easy way that feels effortless to us, things just align and shift, and you can, it's like law of attraction, right? You're
Yeah.
attracted to that same energy you're meant to be attracted to. And wow, so it's just like a beautiful story of like a proof point of like what we experience with that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really
And
cool.
what's so cool about that is that like for anybody listening that's like, okay, that's what I'm going to be like now. I'm going to do the strategy of responding. Well, maybe like that really only works well for generators and manifesting generators. So, two out of the five types. The other
Mhm.
types have different strategies that actually make them excel and make them show up in the best synchronicities. And so, this advice that you hear in life, like just general, I don't know, manifestation or alignment or
Yeah.
wellness advice, it doesn't always apply to everybody. It really depends on different people's designs.
Okay, let's dive into those then. Can we dive
Mhm.
into the different five types? So it's like you can give a
Yeah.
little brief on each, and then those listening could be like, ooh, I don't know. But it's hard to self diagnose yourself, right? You have to like go
Yeah.
through the
I,
birth time, birth date, and
yeah.
location. Yeah.
I don't ever recommend that people try and just figure it out themselves because you're probably going to pick the one that you wish you would
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, sometimes people are like, oh my God, I know I'm this one.
Yeah.
So, just to take it even one step back, if you want to look up your chart, there's tons of websites, but my favorite website is myhumandesign.com. I'm not associated with it. I just really like it. And so, feel free to go there. It's free, it's easy to use.
Is that the one by
My,
Jenna Zoe?
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah.
where I got my details. And it's like, I love how she has it set up. So yeah.
Yeah, myhumandesign.com. So you can do that while I'm talking and
Yeah.
then you'll
Yeah.
know. And you do have to know your birth time though. And if you don't know your birth time, I actually just put out a podcast episode explaining what to do if you don't know it. I think it's like
Hmm.
episode 89 or something of my podcast. So feel free to go listen to that because there's multiple different ways that you can figure it out if you don't know. Like if you're like, nobody
Hmm.
knows that we absolutely can't find it, you're not like lost forever.
Okay. And
But
what's your
if
podcast called so that they can note it down?
Sure. It's the Beginner's Guide to Human Design.
Perfect.
You can find
Awesome.
it pretty much
Episode
wherever.
89 or somewhere around there. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
the title is like How to Find Your Birth Time. It's really
Perfect.
obvious.
Awesome.
So once you have your chart, you're going to see something called a type or an energy type is the actual technical term. And this is only one aspect of your human design chart. So there are like hours and hours and hours and hours of details of information that you could learn. But the energy type is like the biggest, most popular thing that everybody always talks about. And it's definitely the most foundational piece to learn first. So, your energy type is how your energy works as a human. It's not your personality type, it's not everything about you. It's how does your energy work? And you're going to understand
Mhm.
what I mean after hearing about the five different types. So the one that we'll start with is what you are, Sarah, a generator. And there are lots of generators. It's a very popular energy type. And generators are like the luckiest of all the kinds of people because a generator is here to create energy. They're like a generator for a building. They're powering up people and themselves. Not all of the types create energy. So
Mhm.
the only way that a generator can create energy is by having a life that they absolutely love and that leaves them feeling extremely satisfied.
Mhm.
Everybody always says that generators need to feel lit up, which is absolutely true. But in my experience of working with so many people, I've found that the phrase lit up is extremely misleading. And it kind of implies that you need to be ecstatic all the time or so happy that you could scream and do a high kick like a cheerleader. And that does for sure happen for generators, but you shouldn't expect to feel like that all day, every day.
Okay.
What you should be seeking is deep soul satisfaction where you go, wow, this feels so good to have done. Or, wow, my house looks so satisfying to me. Or my wardrobe feels really good for me, or my friendships are so satisfying. Generators are always chasing this emotion or this feeling of satisfaction. And ultimately, that does kind of make you feel lit up because it excites you, it energizes you, it keeps your battery going. And if a generator loves their life, they usually feel like they just have enormous amounts of energy and life force. Like they could just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes people also mistaken them as worker bees, where you can just like hire a generator to do a bunch of tasks and they'll just work, work, work. But they actually will not even be capable of doing that unless they love it.
Mhm.
So that's why generators are so lucky, because it's incredibly important that they're having a fabulous time and that they love their life. And
Mhm.
it doesn't work for a generator to have it like a bad life or have things that they hate or relationships that suck their soul or too many tasks that they truly, truly dislike. And they can't just do an attitude adjustment to fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when a generator is feeling really good about their life and feeling super satisfied, they're creating all this amazing energy that everybody else receives. So all the other types actually get their own personal energy from aligned generators.
Wow.
So it's everyone's priority that the generator is feeling really good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no one's going to be feeling good.
Which
Make sense?
means something that I really like, um, that I've heard someone else I met at the conference say, like when I mentioned to someone, you know what, I would love to like go with you to dinner, but like I just need to finally like rest right now. She's like, oh yeah, no, I totally honor that about you. When she said that to me, I'm like, I love that phrase. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's what you just mentioned. It's like, if we just honor the needs of people without judgment, without making it mean anything in our heads, it's like they are, if they're living their design, they're getting their needs met, we're automatically going to somehow get our needs met in the moment.
Yeah. Everybody needs to repeat after me. What's in alignment for me is in alignment for everybody.
I
It's
love
like
that.
you got to get on board with that. And that's one of my favorite things about human design is that it's made me really appreciate the people in my life that used to frustrate me. Like my sister is so different than me. And it's not that I've ever had major problems with her, but everybody has problems with their siblings.
Yeah.
And now I actually understand why she is the way she is. And I love all these things that she does that used to really bug me because I see that's actually correct for her, which means it's correct for me.
Hmm.
And it just is like, it takes the pressure off when you think somebody should be a different way.
Yeah.
And if you happen to know their design, then you can learn why are they that way. Or if you don't know their design, you can just assume they're made differently than you and it's actually correct for everyone.
Yeah.
Super
Beautiful.
helpful.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Yeah. So the next type we're going to talk about are manifestors. So this is the second out of the 5 types we'll go through. And I want to preface this by saying that everybody can manifest. This doesn't imply that manifestors are the only ones that can manifest. It's just the title of their type. And why they are called a manifestor is because they're the kind of person that gets an urge or like an instinct to do something, and then they go out there and they make it happen. Like they are going 2000% at something when they get an idea or they get just like a motivation to get up and move, do something, create something, start something. They're like going to be nonstop doing it for like manifestors will tell me they'll work like day and night for many days in a row and they don't get tired. Then
Yeah.
once they're manifestation is in action, it's starting to come through, whatever they're creating, it's happening, it's on a roll,
Mhm.
then they retreat and they like go in their cave and sleep or hide or rest or just need alone time. And so manifestors have this energy where they're going. The manifestation starts to happen. They go and they retreat and they rest until the next idea or the next thing or the next burst kind of percolates out of them.
Mm.
So see how that's related to energy, where they get an idea, they have enormous amount of energy, then their energy drops and they rest. Versus a generator isn't like that. They just can have ongoing energy as long as things are feeling really good and aligned for them. And of course, they need to sleep at night and have normal resting, but um, they don't have like a peak and a valley. The
Mhm.
generators can just be energized long term as long as they like their life. Manifestors need to have freedom where they can wait until they have an urge,
Mhm.
go like blast off and go 1,000,000% and then go 0%. So it's
Oh
very
my gosh.
difficult for manifestors to adhere to a rigid schedule. It's very difficult because they might not be aligned with that schedule that day or that week.
Yeah. And with the
It's,
way that our society is like designed, that's like really tricky. I can
yeah,
see why it would be so, feel so heavy at times to just keep going. Wow.
yeah. So I love these concepts because I never like to tell people you can't work a 9 to 5 job or you can't work regularly if you're a manifester. But what you can do is first give yourself grace and understand why maybe you struggle sometimes like
Mhm.
that week at work showing up, and just know that you might need to give yourself a lot of rest in your personal life, or
Mhm.
speak to your coworkers or your boss or your clients or whatever and somehow let them know that you're lower energy and that you're doing the best you can. Sometimes just having understanding of yourself already makes a big difference. And then I love this even more for business owners or managers or bosses to understand about your employees or your staff. And if you have one that's a manifester, try and allow them to go like gangbusters sometimes and then let them rest. Like try to
Mhm.
actually facilitate that within your staff, because they will flourish. They'll do so much better. They're going to make your business better if you give them that ability. And of
Mhm.
course, it's not easy to just have human design conversations with people that don't know about it. But if you know a little bit about it, you can facilitate that within them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So then we
Awesome.
have manifesting generators, which is what I am. This is a combination of the two that we've just talked about. It's the only type that is a combination. And manifesting generators are everything that a generator is. So everything I explained about
Mhm.
generators definitely applies here. And then it's like you sprinkle in a little bit of manifestor within that. So
Mhm.
the biggest difference here is that manifesting generators have a wide variety of interests. So they have that thing that generators have where they create energy by doing what they love,
Mhm.
but then they also have these bursts and urges like a manifester where they're going to get an urge to do a new thing a lot.
Yeah.
So, manifesting generators typically have a lot of hobbies or a lot of different jobs, or they've worked many different types of careers, or
Mhm.
they often have conditioning and programming that tells them that they're a quitter because they
Ah.
start new things all the time and then they drop the last thing. And a lot of why this is because they get these urges and then they go wild with something new. And then manifesting generators are also the fastest of all the types. And so, what that means, it doesn't mean that they walk fast or talk fast. They might, but what it means is that they get the life lesson or they kind of move through the karma of something really fast compared
Mhm.
to other people. So they might sign up for like an 8 week Chinese language learning class, and then they get like the life lesson or like the deep spiritual reason they signed up for that like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and their soul is telling them move on. It's
Yeah,
not
that makes sense.
logical. Yeah,
No,
it's
no, I
not
get that. That makes sense. And that's why you're cycling so fast through new interests and hobbies, because you're just growing and evolving so quickly. That of course, you're not going to stay the same. That
right.
would be boring. So, yeah.
Yeah. So most manifesting generators end up with this complex of like, oh, I just can never stick to anything. I'm so bad. But really, it's that you get what you need and then you're ready to move on and actually use whatever you learned in the next thing. And so
Hmm.
they're like multi-skilled, multi-passionate, and have a lot of random abilities, usually.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that explanation.
Yeah. So then the next one would be projectors. And projectors are totally different than the types we've talked about already. Projectors do not create energy, but they receive a lot of energy from the generators and the manifesting generators. And projectors are here to give their unique bird's eye view on their perspective, their wisdom, their advice. They see things in a very different way and they have a lot of wisdom to give. It's
Hmm.
almost like if you imagine a bird sitting up in a tree most of the day watching everybody down on the ground, and they could see from their perspective how everybody could improve. You know, if the
Hmm.
squirrel went over that way, it wouldn't run into the fox or whatever.
Hmm.
They can
Yeah.
see a better path, a better way, a better method for everyone simply because they have a different perspective. And so projectors are not all about feeling great and being super satisfied all the time, like a generator would be or a manifesting generator. They're also not really the type of person to get these big urges like a manifester and want to go out and start new projects all the time. They're more contemplative. They observe, they see a lot, and then they have a like huge need to always speak their mind and give people advice. And so
Hmm.
the worst thing that a projector can do is give unsolicited advice.
Mm.
To them, it feels so regular and it feels so
Yeah.
like kind and helpful, but to everybody else, they're not ready for it. They're not operating from that perspective, and it feels really invasive. And so
Hmm.
projectors have a different strategy than we talked about. We talked about the strategy of responding at the beginning. Projectors have the strategy of waiting for the invitation. And
Mm.
so they spend most of their life kind of observing and picking up information, doing a lot of self introspection as well, and personal growth, and really tuning into themselves. And then when other people sense this person has wisdom, they'll ask, can you give me your advice? Or can I hire you to help me with this? Or, hey, mom, can you tell me what to do in this situation? And that's the time when the projector really shines and shows
Mm.
up with their energy of advice and wisdom.
That's so
Okay.
cool. Love
Yeah.
that.
And then we have reflectors, the fifth type, and reflectors are incredibly rare. About 1% of the population are reflectors, and they are what they sound like. They are a reflection of whatever is in front of them. They're like a mirror. Very, very interesting, very unique, different kind of people. So when you meet a reflector, if you love this reflector and you just can't get enough of them and you just enjoy everything about them, it's actually an opportunity for you to see what you love about yourself. So
Mm.
they're actually reflecting back to you what you like about yourself. If you really dislike that reflector and you just can't stand them and you're super judgmental, you're actually seeing things in yourself that you really don't like. A reflector is like a chameleon and they can shape shift and become a completely different person around whoever they're around. They meld into different environments, into different vibes, frequencies, energies. And most reflectors that come to me, like at the beginning of their human design learning journey, they tell me that they've had a really, really difficult life because when they don't know this about themselves and they're just, fending for themselves in life, they often feel like, I don't know who I am. Why am I like one way with this family member and one way with this friend and one way at this environment? And like, who am I and what's going
Mm.
on? And they just feel really out of touch with themselves until they start to learn how a reflector really works.
Mhm.
A reflector does absolutely have qualities that are unique to themselves. They have gifts, they have a life theme, they have all kinds of things in their human design chart that are them. But the way that their energy works is for them to show up and reflect society. So when
Mhm.
a reflector is feeling really, really good in an environment, it's a sign that it's a good, healthy, like high vibe environment. They're like a
Mhm.
canary in a coal mine. When a reflector is miserable in an environment, it's not something wrong with them, most likely. It's a sign there's some bad vibes going on.
Yeah.
Something here is not right. And the reflector is like the canary. They're like giving the signal something's wrong because I feel sick or I feel terrible. I'm depressed when I walk in this room. Something's off. So
Yeah.
if you imagine, like if we used to live in a tribe of about 100 people, you would need one reflector, and that reflector would be the kind of like the gauge for how are we doing.
Yeah.
Like let's watch
Wow.
the reflector and see how's the tribe doing. Are we high vibe or is there some bad
Wow, that's
stuff
so
going on?
fascinating. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
really cool. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Thank you for explaining all of those. Like, that's really beautiful. And
yeah.
I would love to, I think, dive into also. So, of course, most people that are listening to this podcast are photographers, have a photography business. And what are some things that come to mind of like key things? Because there's obviously so much information they can get in their chart. But if they do get their chart and they see what their type is, and then they go in a little bit deeper, what are some things they can find out about themselves that can actually help them run their businesses more effectively, for example?
So many. So one of them I would say would be your authority. And your authority should just be right there in the description of your chart. And it'll say some kind of word like emotional authority or sacral authority or splenic. There's a number of different authorities. And your authority is like your special, unique type of intuition, or it's kind of like your decision maker or the boss inside of you that always makes final decisions. So, as a photographer, you're probably having to make decisions all the time, like, what type of photography am I going to be doing? Am I going to do weddings? Am I going to do landscapes? I don't know.
Mhm.
Whatever you're going to do, so you have to decide. How do
Mhm.
you decide? Well, society often tells us to make smart choices or choose what you love. And for a lot of people, they can't figure out what that means. Like, what do you mean make a smart choice? Like, they're all smart choices, or how do I know which one is logical or a smart choice? Or how do I know which one I love? Because a lot of people just can't connect to that. Like, that's how I was raised, is to just always choose the thing that's going to make me the happiest. And for me, according to my design, like I actually am incapable of making a decision like that. And I can't, like, I
Because
literally
there's no
can't.
one thing that will make you the happiest. That's right. It's like,
Right. It's kind
yeah,
of like everything and nothing will make me the happiest. Like I could
yeah,
get on board with almost anything and none of it is quite it. And so, like, telling me to make, like, choose from my heart or choose what I like, it's kind of like, ugh, like, I don't know what that means.
hmm,
And so when you understand the intricacies of your own authority or your own special type of intuition, you know which voice in your head to listen to make that decision. So, like
hmm,
some people that have something called a splenic authority, we won't talk about all the details, but this is just an example. If you have a splenic authority, or your spleen in your human design chart is your decision maker, you just make a decision based off of your first snap instinct, and that's what your soul is telling you what to do. That's like how your soul, or if you want to even think of the universe or God, they communicate to splenic authority people through an immediate instinct for something.
hmm,
Just what's a yes right now, the first moment that you even heard of the thing? Is it a yes?
yeah,
Is it a no? And then if you have a splenic authority, you'll usually be like, oh my God, I do that all the time, but I've been trying not to because it's so reckless. And you
mm,
kind of like snuff it out. Or somebody else might have an emotional authority like you do. And for those people, they should not be making instinctual decisions based off their first snap judgment. They
mhm,
should actually tune into their emotions. Like, would this feel happy and positive and full of love for me? Or does this give me stress and anxiety, even though it's a logical yes?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so when you actually learn the depths of how to follow your authority, I swear to you that it's the most helpful part of your entire human design chart, especially for a person that needs to make a lot of decisions. So
Hmm.
with your photography business, deciding all of it, like what type of photography, how much am I going to work? Am I going to take on this client? Should I hire this person? Should I buy this type of camera?
Hmm.
Should I work May 4th? Like
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
any of those
And
decisions.
also while shooting, we're
Yes,
literally, if we're photographing a session or a wedding day, it's like in the moment we have to make decisions. And it's like so many of them. And it's like how to tune and tap into knowing the way you're meant to make decisions. That's so powerful.
totally. And I think for me this is the main thing that actually turned my health around, and it definitely turned my entire career around and allowed me to start making a lot more money. Because when I just simply make decisions based off of my authority and not based off of logic or what I quote unquote should be doing,
Hmm.
things work.
Yeah.
Like it truly feels like magic to me, where I'm like, wow, I'm going to make this choice because I'm following my authority. But it seems like a really dumb decision, like logically, or like my mom would not approve. And like that's a
Yeah.
huge piece of conditioning for me, is like mother issues. And but my authority is always right, and it always gives me good results, whether it's business, health, money, relationships, all of it, social. Like it is, I love it. It's the most helpful thing.
I totally resonate with what you said. I can tell the difference of when I'm running my business in a way of flow, fluidity, everything just flows. I make money easily. People book me easily, like this way and that way. And then I can tell when I'm in my fear and making decisions that I think I should be making, then everything feels like a push, push, push. I'm not actually welcoming as much abundance. It feels so hard. It doesn't, like, I can totally resonate with that. And it's so true. It's like 100%. I make those decisions and that, like, and with that emotional authority, and I just know how to align. And it's a
Mhm.
practice. It's a practice because it's like I have chapters in my business where I'm like so in tune with what I need and want and what gives me energy and what I say yes to. And then I had chapters where I diverted. And then it's like hey, reminder, this isn't the way for you. It does, like, it feels harder and it's less abundant. So it's like, it is a practice. So you find that as well, right?
Definitely. It's such a practice. And I find that, like what you're saying, there are periods where I'm really in alignment and everything's easy, everything's working, everything's flowing. And then something kind of pulls me out of myself and I go back to the shoulds.
Yeah.
And it almost always happens to me because I have a lot of learning programs I'm in. Like I'm in business
Oh yeah.
programs, I'm in all kinds of things, and there's teachers and they tell you to do something.
Yeah.
And I believe them. Like I think you're probably right. However, I'm the most right. And it's very difficult to have an expert tell you what to do and then to be able to actually trust yourself to go against it if you know, like from your authority, a different way is better or a variation on it. And I love to be a perfect student. Like I'm just good at
Yeah.
following the rules. Like if somebody gives me directions, I'll just do it. Great. But I've learned that I have to only do that a little bit so I can master what they said. And then I have to quickly tune into my authority and find out, is this actually right for me or do I need to tweak it? And
Oh
if
my
I go
gosh.
along
Yes.
too far with what an expert tells me, like health, oh my God, sometimes I just have to take a really long break from learning about health stuff because if somebody says something about grams of protein, I'll do it. And then now I'm following someone's advice that's not mine.
I love that you said this because this is, oh my gosh, this is a big part of also, because most of us that are, in business, we're learning from mentors, online courses, like some of you that are listening to me to this podcast, you learn from me. And that's why I make such a priority in all of my courses. It's like you have to know through your inner compass if what I'm teaching is aligned with you and
Mhm.
take that on or don't. You have to know that because I've personally experienced myself learning along my journey from teachers that I admire. But I don't know, and I don't know where this intelligence and natural knack came from. But when I first started my business, I was learning from teachers and mentors and courses, but I was only taking the tidbits that I'm like, oh, I like that part. I like that part. I like that part. And then I created my own personal solution from their teachings, but it didn't apply everything the exact way that they said it. And as an example, there's a course that I watched on like how to shoot documentary style for weddings, right? I watched that course and I got so much inspiration from him feeling so free. I forget what his full name is. Tyler something. I'm sorry, I can't credit the photographer because this was like maybe 2015. I don't remember, but I got so much inspiration of how free he was to just photograph the story of a wedding day, not be overly thinking about the perfect background, the no mess in the kitchen. The main premise was focus on the real. The people want the real captured, and you can actually get paid really well for just shooting in this way. But all of his work is pretty much like a dark edit, black and white, whatever, right? If I had literally applied every single thing that he taught and done it the way he does it, I would have lost my sparkle, my shine, the way that I'm meant to shoot and I would have been miserable and out of alignment. And as you guys can see, my work is opposite. It's like more bright, it has more color. It's like I want it to feel like sunshine. And that's a perfect example of you taking inspiration and tidbits that you like from a mentor, but then twisting it in your own way that you follow your own authority and your own human design to make it your own. And that is how the beauty of like the world, the infinite like ways we can all be creative and be unique, right? Like that brings out your uniqueness while also learning from someone at the same time. So I'm so happy that you touched on that point because I do feel that so many people can get lost in the overwhelm and the I should be doing this, I should be doing this from mentors. But remember, take in the lessons and then make them your own. Like, I
Yeah.
love that you touched on that.
Yeah. And another one that's so common, sometimes I do like career workshops and career classes through the lens of human design. And this one little tiny part of the design makes or breaks somebody's professional life. And it's understanding if you're built to be a consistent person or an inconsistent person. So when
Mm.
you learn more about human design or you have a reading, somebody can tell you which one you are. And consistent people, according to human design, are very magnetic and attractive and relaxed and in flow when they have a lot of consistency in their life. So, for example, a consistent work schedule or a consistent social media posting schedule or consistent email sending out schedule, email marketing, consistent podcast posting, consistent eating schedule. Like consistent people thrive on consistency and they truly become more magnetic. So that means that your clients will be more attracted to you if you appear consistent.
Mhm.
But society tells us everybody should be consistent. And if you're actually an inconsistent person like me, about half the people are one way, about half are the other way. Inconsistent people dim their magnetism and just seem off when they force the consistency. And
Wow.
so I
Yeah.
used to post my podcasts like every single Wednesday, there's a podcast. And I used to try and post on social media every single day and have these really rigid work schedules and a morning routine and all of this stuff. And I can do it, but it's stressful and effortful for me. And I've noticed that when I've let all of that go, and now I do things in the moment because an inconsistent person is really, really born to know what to do when it's time. Like we're
Yeah.
in the present moment. I know when to post. I know when to do this. I know when to do that. I don't need a schedule. when I can be in that state, my stuff lands. Like my posts get more traction, my podcasts have more downloads. People are like filling my schedule like crazy with readings when I show up to my entire business with as free of a schedule as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
so when people are like, oh God, how do I do that if I have to book things? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't just shoot a wedding when I feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
schedule that. Well, what I recommend for inconsistent types, if you learn which one you are, when you're scheduling things, try to have your schedule look random. Like if you can picture what your calendar looks like, you like have something booked here and then five in a
Yeah.
row and then none and then one and then four. Like my personal schedule of human design readings and classes I teach is so all over the board so that every day feels different for me, and I found that that always makes me feel energized. If I like only do podcasts on Thursdays and then I do readings on Mondays and Wednesdays, like if I try to structure it that way, I am going to quit. Like
Yeah.
I will burn out. I just won't have the energy because it feels too rigid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Oh
a
man, I'm gonna
very
check this shit
helpful.
out right after we finish recording this. I'm like, that is one I actually don't know about myself. I need to check that out because you're talking about both of them, and I'm like, shit, I don't know. Like, I actually don't know which one I am. So yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
check
and
that
it's
out.
super trippy because a lot of times you will think you are the one that you think you should be. Like I have so much programming that tells me that consistency is best. And
Yeah.
I've acted consistent my whole life. And when I learned this, I was like, huh? And then I just tried it and I was like, wow, I didn't know I could feel this good. Like
Wow.
I was unaware that this is pleasurable and it works
Mhm.
better until I just opened my mind and tried
And
it.
this just makes so much sense. The connection to your health of how you said you started using human design and in a month you felt like a different person. Because can you imagine the inundated programming that is defaulted in our subconscious mind of how we think we should show up? It's this constant frequency of stress within our bodies. It's like we're in subconscious fight or flight mode all the time. We don't even know it. We don't even know it. And then it's like this, wait, I can be how I just want to be. And it's like all
Yes.
this energy releases, and it's like this frequency. You end up being operating at the frequency that was meant for you. And it's a relaxing, calmer frequency. That's like love. I love that connection so much. And I know someone listening to this is like being like, oh my God, this is blowing my mind. Like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's wild to peel back these layers of like, once you learn things about your chart and you're like, really, is that really the right way for me? That doesn't sound like me. And then you try it and you realize it feels good and you do like it or it does work better for you. And then you reflect back and you're like, why did I think that other way was better? Like
Yeah.
for me, why did I think that being consistent was better? And that's where this word conditioning comes in. So conditioning is a huge concept in human design where you remove all the training that you had in life or the programming that you get from so many places, from school, your parents, from commercials, from just your culture, from that thing that the boy said in kindergarten that one day that hurt your feelings. Like all that stuff starts to like dim you from being able to see yourself clearly and try and fit yourself into who you think you should be. And something that I've learned personally is that I have a large amount of conditioning around my mother. And it's really weird because I don't have a bad relationship with my mother. We're very close. She's a really great mom. We work together. I see her pretty much every day. And what happened is that I think I just grew up trying to be her. And
Mm.
when I've learned about her human design chart, I'm like, oh my God, that is how I've been operating. I've literally been living
Wow.
my mom's human design chart without ever knowing it until recently.
Mhm.
And she didn't ever tell me to be that way. She didn't scold me or tell me I should do this or that I'm wrong or that that's bad. She just really actually tried to facilitate me being myself. But I ended up admiring her and falling into
Yeah.
what's right for her. And it was
Oh,
incredibly wrong for me.
this is so good. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes, this just shows that like it's not only like quote unquote negative things that have happened
Mm-mm.
to us or like society. It's like all the information that we're taking in, we perceive it a certain way. And then we also make choices on top of that. And it could result in something like this.
Yeah.
And I want to relate this quickly to like photographers that this is where comparisonitis, because comparisonitis, photographers feel this so deeply as artists, as they're scrolling through Instagram and they see another photographer they admire creating these beautiful photos. They end up comparing themselves, being like, I'm not them. I can't create that. I don't even have that within me to like create that way. I'm doomed. I'm not as good. I will never be good enough because I never can see photos that way. Right. And it's like you just expressing that is like has made that connection for me of like maybe you're just trying to be that person and you think that's the answer to success, but really it's going to be being your own artist, your own person that will give you the success. And then there's going to be other people that are looking at your work being like, that's beautiful. Why can't I see the world that way? It's like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And when you fully embrace what's actually correct for you and what's authentic for you, you truly magnetize everything that's in your highest good to you. So I just believe that living according to your human design is the definition of manifestation. Like when you're
Yeah.
just aligned, you can't help but attract all the right people to you, all the right clients, the money that you deserve, the success, the health, the everything that's
Yeah.
actually meant for you for your highest good can't help but be magnetized to you when you're showing up authentically as you in your design. And then I love the concept of like this envy or jealousy because when you can harness it, it's good for two things. One, exactly what you just said, like proof that everybody's an individual, what works for them is beautiful, and then something else works for me. So it's just a nice reminder of that. And then two, sometimes it's really helpful to notice what you're jealous of or envious of because it shows you a piece of what you actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you should want to replicate that person and copy exactly how they are, but find out really what is it about that thing you're envious of? And is there something about that that you can start to cultivate within yourself? And
Mm-hmm.
it's probably beyond what you think. Like if you see someone's photos and you just think, oh my God, they're so beautiful. Well, ask yourself,
Yeah.
why? Dig way down, like 10 whys down,
Mm.
and then start to cultivate that within you and see if it fits.
Yes. Yeah. It is usually much deeper than the surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
maybe it's
totally.
literally just the deepest layer could just be like they're free. They seem so free as an artist to just shoot how they want to and post what they want to. And I want to do that with my work.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
could be that, you know? Yeah.
definitely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, Madeline, this has been incredible conversation. Um like I just can't, by the way, I cannot wait to go in and check. I'm like, am I consistent or inconsistent? This is going to give me so much insight. But yeah, I would love for you to let everybody know of how they can connect with you, how they can work with you deeper. Yeah, so give us all of the details there.
Yeah. So the best way to connect with me would be over on Instagram. You can find me at healthy_Madeline over there. I also have a podcast, The Beginner's Guide to Human Design. And if you are brand new to human design, the best way to use the podcast is to start with episode 1 and listen sequentially because it's like a course for brand new beginners that don't know anything. If you already know some stuff and you're familiar with the different terminology, then you can just pick and choose random episodes that appeal to you. And
Mhm.
then I also have a human design freebie library that goes along with the podcast perfectly. So you can get that in the show notes. We'll link that in
Yes.
there. But it's just a very, very helpful little library of different PDFs and videos and documents that you can use in tandem with the podcast to make your learning like really stick. It's so helpful. Um, And my website is madelineevergreen.com. And on there, you can find any links for booking readings or getting in my online coaching programs. I do a lot of groups for human design if readings
Mhm.
aren't a good fit. And so those are all the places.
That's amazing. And could you just like maybe explain in a couple sentences of like what kind of what can someone get out of a reading? Like so they show up to a reading and then on the other side, like what kind of clarity can they get? What kind of transformation and benefits can they get from a reading?
A lot of variety. So, readings can be for so many different reasons. For brand new beginners, readings are super helpful to just jumpstart your learning so that you don't have to do all like the heavy work of learning the foundations and all the language and terminology on your own. It can
Mhm.
help you just learn the most basic helpful things, and then you can just get going with some assignments, some little homework I'll give you, some things to actually implement in your life to just
Mhm.
start feeling better right away. If you already know some about human design and you do a reading, then it's really beneficial to show up with your current life problems. So
Mm.
treat it kind of like a therapy session where you say, these are my issues, these are my roadblocks, this is the stuff I just can't get past or that I'm really struggling with. And then I'm going to help you work through those things through the lens of your chart. So I'm going to help you figure out problem solving or relationship issues or career stumps or whatever the problem is
Mhm.
according to your design. So
Oh
those
my
are kind of like two
gosh.
different avenues.
That sounds so fun. I'm like, you have a really cool freaking job. Quote,
It's really
job.
fun. I
It
love it.
really, because like I
I
don't
can't
feel
get
like
enough.
mine's a job. I never call what I do a job. It's like, but you know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
that's so fun. Okay, amazing. So yeah, everything will be linked in the show notes. Make sure to reach out to Madeline on her Instagram, healthy_Madeline.
Yep.
And whether you're gonna, check out her podcast or check out her free resource library or book a reading with her. I know for sure if you got value out of this episode, please just reach out to her and just say thank you because it'll give her energy. Like we talked about, manifesting generator, it'll give her energy.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so thank you so much, Madeline, for all of your insights. This has been so much fun. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Of course. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K photo to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.